Welcome back to Streamline Entertainment, people. We're going to get into a Ali Harris video in a moment, which is mummification. And this is from the Wikipedia, and it goes on to say, a mummy is a dead human or an animal whose soft tissues and organs have been preserved by either intentional or accidental exposure to chemicals, extreme cold, very low humidity, or a lack of air, so that the recovered body does not decay. Further, if kept in a cool and dry conditions, some authorities restrict the use of the term to bodies, interesting, deliberately embalmed with chemicals, but the use of word to cover accidental desiccated bodies goes back to at least the early 17th century. That's there to read free of charge there, people, if people want to really go into it. It's really, really interesting stuff. And it's got me really looking into it a lot more and educating myself a little bit more into it as well. So do go ahead and read it, but I do want to go into some stuff that Ali has recorded basically herself on this topic. Let's get straight into this.
Part 1 from the Science Museum. The ancient Egyptians, mummification was a spiritual process imbued with deep meaning. Ancient texts show it took 70 days with carefully defined rituals and invocations to prepare the deceased for an eternal afterlife. And this is the purpose of mummification, it's to give eternal afterlife. It also requires specialized skills, long list of ingredients, and a professional class of embalmers steeped in religious and chemical knowledge. But what went into or was smeared on, brushed over, and wrapped around the mummified bodies themselves has been mostly guesswork on the part of modern scholars. There is almost no textual evidence, says Philip Stockhammer, an archaeologist at the Ludwig Macmillan University of Munich. He has been doing work for the WHO, and he says that how this worked, how the substances were mixed, and how they were named, this isn't known. But it changes with the study. Stockhammer and his publishers this week in Nature identified registered from labeled jars found in an ancient Egyptian mummification workshop. The researchers were able to show the process from a continent away. You can actually look into the vessels and see what's still inside. An architectural scientist at the Max Planck Institute for Geonastrology was also not involved with the research. The new evidence emerged from the 2,700 burial complex south of Cairo called Saqqara. In 2016, the University of Tübingen archaeologist Ramadan Hussein, who died in the spring of 2022, identified shallow, above-ground pits where the dead would have been covered in natron, a salt mixture used to dry out the body after death. Partway down a nearby they aren't quite so how shall I say it, so understanding on a 70-year-old ritual. They just want to get the body mummified. And so it's usually the quickest and cheapest method, to be honest with you. So sand and salt are very much involved, as are tar and bitumen. And those particular items that are used to preserve, along with some herbs, actually originate now and are imported from Morocco.
Really interesting
so
stuff.
So that gives you the link with Morocco and the Canary Islands.
Thank you very much for that interesting information.
The shaft that they use can be carefully filled with sand and rocks and dozens of embalming vessels that seemed afterwards to be ritually disposed of after workers had used them. They used these items into a hiding place for the tools. they found cups, bowls, plates, and incense burners inscribed with the names of oils and substances used for embalming in order for bodies to become mummified. The researchers also used dentist drills to remove coincide fragments a few millimeters thick from the inside of the containers, then analysed their chemical makeup using gas chromatology. Earlier studies had analysed mummies from museum collections and identified chemicals including tree resins and bitumen. This is the first to examine vessels found in the context of a mummification workshop done in 2022. On the Canary Islands particularly, the analysts revealed traces of animal fats, beeswax, vegetable oils and bitumen, along with multiple plant resins, ingredients that were probably mixed and heated to form ointments. Their properties made them particularly easy to recover from pottery vessels, even after thousands of years. The more fatty and sticky a residue is, the better results you get. It has good organic preservation and the residues that preserve well. After being immersed in natron, which is a mixture of what I've just said, the corpses were treated with the sticky mixtures to seal the skin, blocking decay and decomposition by bacteria. So that's probably why birds and kind of animals and insects don't necessarily go around a body that has been mummified, because there's no bacteria. The materials that have been found have an antibacterial function. It is the most complicated part of the process where the chemistry really starts. Some ointments may have been smeared directly on the corpses. Others were probably applied to the linen bandages, which may have been dipped directly into wide-mouthed goldfish bowl vessels, which have to be put on specially. Now, that is very interesting, especially if they're dealing with somebody who they are moving around. So we need to bear that in mind. Most of the bowls and the bits of equipment also bore labels naming specific ingredients and give general descriptions like this makes his odour pleasant. So, you know, they were doing it as well to cover and mask smells and things. I don't know that that's important, really. Certainly burial in sand and salt is, and also freezing. They also can drain the body of all fluids when they take the organs out. And that is why most mummified bodies have less than 65% of their body in weight left. That's a rough figure, can be 65 to 75%. But that gives you a rough idea that what you're doing is you're pulling the body inside out, really. Okay, maybe I've explained that a bit wrong, I don't know, but hopefully you get the gist. Any questions, please send them over. Thank you and bye. Chemical artistry behind the embalming to mummification. The pot residue is unmistakable, reflecting the precise knowledge of ingredients, temperatures, and cooking times. One done over hundreds, if not thousands of years. The ancient Egyptians spent more than 2,000 years trying to perfect the preservation of the human body. That's 2,000 years trying to perfect their workflow. So their to-do list must have been amazing. The chemical knowledge they must have had in this workshop that we looked at was amazing. And the other thing is the kind of things that they mixed it in with was juniper and some of the exotic trees like pine and various other types of smelling plants, should I say, which obviously were done to detract the bacteria.
Animals, yeah.
And also to give it a pleasant smell. So that's a bit on ancient Egypt and mummification. I'll go on to the parts of the processes so that you can readily understand that, hopefully. Thank you. Bye. Are unable to grow on a corpse and cause it to decay. Historically, quick drying has been the most common method of mummification, since bacteria and fungi cannot grow where there is no water. So bear that in mind. Where there's no water, the bacteria and fungi cannot grow. So mummies can be dried in the sun, with fire or smoke, or with chemicals. Since most bacteria and fungi cannot live in sub-freezing temperatures, permanent freezing can also produce a mummy. Placing a body in an oxygen-free environment, such as a peat bog, will also cause mummification because microorganisms can't live without air. Yet another way to create a mummy is to bury it in soil containing chemicals that kill bacteria and fungi. Now, that's very interesting because that also means that you can bury it in soil and sand and salt. And if it is packed with other certain chemicals that kill bacteria and fungi, it can be preserved that way as well. So perhaps we need to look at that a bit deeper. Thank you. And this is another part to mummification. Well, I think Lauren, the mortician in the States, was really clear on this in today's world about mummification. The reason I wanted to go into the coroner's court to listen was that we needed all these details because it was a public place. Mm-hmm. And
Agreed.
As taxpayers, we're entitled to know. I also had a lot of medical stuff to take in that if anybody hadn't got copies of any of my stuff, they were quite welcome to take a copy and read it at a later date. And if anybody wants a copy of Falling from a Great Height, as done by Exit, and also the WHO, which is the World Health Organization, please ask. If you want me to post it to you, I can do, but there will be a postage charge, which I shan't gain from. I don't gain from any of this. And as Marvin knows, I'm doing it because I want to help if I can. So anybody wants to question any of what I've got, please do. Please don't do backbiting. It isn't necessary. It doesn't help anything. And we're living in a world where there's too much of that going on anyway. So you take care, everybody, and speak to you all again. Bye. Thank you.
That was Ali Harris about mummification. I thought she'd done a brilliant job there. She has got a very medical background. We need to really appreciate the effort she put into the Jay Slater case and all the stuff and investigations which she did in her free time as well. So thank you very much, Ali, for that. That was part one. There is more stuff to come, but what I will do, I'll do it on a part two, people. Okay, thank you very much. Let me know what you think. This will all go out to Streamline Investigations as well, and I'll do a video. I'll put a video attached on that because obviously Streamline Investigation needs some videos put out there. Thank you very much for everyone who supports me on Streamline. I really do appreciate you all, and thank you very much for coming to the channel. We've got lots more to come on different cases. I'm going to be talking about a footballer this evening, a lot of, up on a lot of charges, and his case is going to that Old Bailey. So let me know what you think, people. Once again, thank you very much, Ali, for your full support, and obviously your deep dive into mummification. Thank you. Welcome back to part two, people, of mummification. And this is a short video in the process of it. Let's get straight into this.
Process of mummification. The ancient Egyptians believed that people could be resurrected after death. So they invented the mummy to preserve the body, which was a mummy made in the 1st century AD, before the mummy was made. All internal organs are removed, leaving only the heart or the whole lung, and then the whole body is covered with salt for about 40 days until it is completely dehydrated, and then the whole body is smeared with aromatic oils and resins. Using the stickiness of the resin, the strips of cloth are tightly wrapped around the body. The mummies are placed on a wooden board. A layer of resin is applied, and then they are wrapped together with cloth, usually a small bag containing precious stones. A mummy bead ring is placed on the chest and abdomen of the mummy, which is a bird with a long elongated beak that is used as a sacrifice to the gods. But this kind of mummy made by a bird with the deceased. Very rarely, the portrait panel of the deceased was tied and fixed with linen strips, and then wrapped around a layer of linen cloth and painted on the cloth. Of course, this kind of mummy painted in red. It is also very rare, and at the end, various symbols representing rebirth are engraved and the name of the deceased is written at the bottom, so that a mummy completes the mummy, which was made in the 1st century AD. It is still intact to the present day.
Very, very interesting stuff there, the whole process of mummification, and it's something that we believe that goes on in Tenerife, in ceremonies and things like that there, and it's something that I think that hasn't been talked about enough, especially in the Jay Slater case, which Ali have said. So interesting stuff. That was part 2, people, and I will do a little bit more on this another time, but thank you very much.